But as you know, climate change is part of the environment issues that we are facing in this world. And I will focus on two fora: the UN Environment Assembly, which is the highest authority for the environment, and the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. That's actually the forum where African ministers, Africans representing their countries, they meet actually to make decisions on the environment issues, including climate change. So this is actually the framework, but I will not develop on other fora and other structures. We have the UN Economic and Social Council, you know it very well, high-level political forum, the Summit of the African Union, the UN Environment Assembly, and the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment. ECOSOC is actually responsible for bringing that harmony when it comes to the three pillars of development, of sustainable development, the economic, social, and the environment. And then also coordinate and follow up the implementation of the 23 agenda, the SDGs. And then also the monitor the implementation of the UN program, UN Environment Program, which is actually the body in the UN system that follows up on the implementation, the development, and implementation of the program of work when it comes to the environment. And we have a sub-program actually on climate change. And then you have the high-level political forum. Its central role is to follow up and review of the 23 agenda, the SDGs at global level. Improve coordination and cooperation within the UN system and promote system-wide coherence and coordination of the sustainable development policies. So this is more information actually on the high-level political forum. It's a key actually forum when it comes to decision making. And then we have the African Union, we have the AU Summit, and this morning the CAOSOC was mentioned. The CAOSOC is the Committee of African Heads of State and Government on Climate Change. Then we have another agency called NEPAD, under the umbrella of the African Union, and we have the specialized technical committees. There was a discussion at AMSEN at the African Union also to transform that conference that I will talk about, the conference on the environment, to a specialized technical committee inside the African Union. And then we have the regional economic committees. We have the African regional economic committees based in Addis. So UN Environment Assembly is the highest level decision-making body. Before 2013, it was a governing council. Then member states decided actually to elevate that to the level of an assembly. There are 193 countries that are represented there at UN Environment Assembly. So the UN Environment Assembly actually works with full engagement of UN agencies, specialized agencies, civil society, and private sector. I can tell you that private sector, and my colleague here, Mithika from Bahja, can talk about that maybe tomorrow, on the role, the key role actually of civil society in influencing policies and in influencing decisions and the outcome of that body. So UN Environment Assembly actually brings to the agenda emerging environment issues and provide a forum for deliberating on key areas. Its resolutions and calls for action provide leadership and catalyzes intergovernmental action on the environment. UN UNEA outcomes are reported, reviewed by the UN General Assembly through ECOSOC. And this is very important. I'm just building up to give you actually the architecture of the framework on environmental governance inside the UN and other bodies. Then we have this Committee of Permanent Representatives, which is key. It's very important. Those are ambassadors and representatives of countries to the UN Environment Assembly. It was established by the Governing Council in May '85. That time we had only 558 member states, but now it's universal. It's composed of accredited permanent representatives to UN Environment Program. So in terms of networking, in terms of information, those are the people that we work with daily. So they are the one who actually coordinate between Addis, Nairobi, Geneva, and New York. So their role is key. They are the one actually to work on the common position, African common position on environmental issues, including climate change. So they prepare actually UNEA meeting, and they also review the implementation of its decision through the MTS. The MTS is the midterm strategy that is developed actually by UN Environment Program, and it's approved by states, member states. And then we have another program of work that's developed by the UN Environment Program, and it's developed, financed also, and the mechanism of financing is also approved by government for the implementation. Committee of Permanent Representatives, strengthened at the Universal Session, as I say, the Governing Council. It prepares the UNEA agenda. Those are representatives of government, and it prepares also its documentation, provides advice to UNEA on policy issues, and convene thematic or programmatic debate on environmental issues. It's led by 5 bureau members elected for 2 years period, and the chair of CPR for those now it's from Botswana. It's Ambassador Moreki, and he's the one actually coordinating all the work of the Committee of Permanent Representatives. It meets four times a year. I'm just giving you more details on how those bodies, the work and the influence, they develop the policies on the environment. And it uses actually the same rules of procedures of the UN Environment Assembly. UN Environment Assembly is led by 10 bureau members. The chair actually is from Costa Rica, and each group is 3 minutes. Each group is represented by 2, I have 15 minutes. Yes, it's okay. Wow. So it's Gabon, because Gabon is the chair of the African Ministerial Conference, and also Nigeria. So CPR and UNEA are serviced by and supported by the Secretariat of the governing bodies, which is based actually at the UN Environment Program. So then we have another body which is very important when it comes to the environmental issues, is actually the Africa group of CPR. Those are the representatives that are based in Nairobi, and we have actually a technical committee who are negotiators. So when we talk about policies and we talk about those are negotiations, and this group is very active when it comes to negotiation, including the African common position. So the African common position that they were talking about, it came actually from that group, through the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, and it goes actually through other bodies, including the African Union. So what is important here? A link also the capitals, because that link is very important. When a decision is made, capitals, they have to be informed, because the implementation is very important. We go to big fora, and if decisions are not discussed and governments are not aware actually of what is involved actually for the implementation, that's the danger. And then this is just a photo. This is the group. You can see that's the African group based in Nairobi. And those 2 photos, this one is during the UN Environment Assembly. You can see Zimbabwe, Kenya, and Egypt. And that photo there, that gentleman with the tie, is actually the chair of CPR, and he was actually representing the Africa group in terms of negotiation. So those are the people that sometimes you are blaming. Why they took this decision, why did they consider this and that. So at least now you know them, and we can discuss actually in the in that discussion their role and all actually the networking done at AMCEN, at UNIA, and also at the General Assembly. So this is AMCEN. It was established in 85. It's the key fora, or a key forum actually, when it comes to the environment. So I will pass this because I don't have a lot of time. And then just one last thing on AMCEN. It's very important because decisions that have been adopted at global level, they were prepared, tabled by the African group. When it comes to the decision on natural capital at global level, because natural capital, that's the foundation to transform this continent. That's the foundation actually if we want to engage as Africans in a transformative process. We have to consider actually the natural capital that we have in this continent. A legal wildlife decision that was adopted at the UN Environment Assembly was prepared by the African group and tabled by Botswana. Combating desertification, lead in batteries was also tabled, prepared by the African group, and it was actually presented by Burkina Faso. Okay, when it comes to AMCEN and climate change, all 54 countries, members of AMCEN, adopted the Paris Agreement, and those discussions that happened actually in Egypt, you were there. Zero, give me just 2 minutes and I finish. And all those decisions, just to give you actually the mechanisms that you have a clear ideas where are the fora when it comes to environment issues, including the climate change. Those are the fora, the mechanism of the UN and other institutions, the places, the right places where Africans should negotiate and should interact and actually work on their common positions. So I will pass this and what's that? The role of AMCEN also, because I just want to add to what you said this morning, we support the African, through the AMCEN, we support the African group when it comes actually to facilitating that science that sometimes it's complex. Those negotiators are not specialists in the environmental climate change. They change actually positions, and their background is not necessarily climate change, or they don't have that strong scientific background, and they will not actually borrow it from that. We have to work with them, and that's why bodies like scientific bodies based in Africa, they have to be strengthened to support those groups. So we support them with, as Secretariat of AMCEN, with translating that information. For example, the GAP report, that was the global one, we tried to develop a simple one called Africa GAP report for ambassadors, for those negotiators actually to understand that they can use it as a scientific base for evidence actually to defend, to form and defend the African position on environmental issues. So I can talk about this in when there are questions, but just I want to end with this collage of pictures. This is actually, I think, the reality of Africa. Africa is rich when it comes to natural capital. It's very rich, and Africans should be aware of that. And that's the foundation of the development of this continent. But you can see in the middle, Africa has great project. When I was working actually in Ouarzazate, in this country, on the project of solar, it's huge, but Africa has another reality. That gentleman is still actually struggling to cook his food, and that lady is also struggling to help her son when he comes actually from school to do his homework. And those photos, we don't need comment. When we are talking about policies, those are the people that are affected. We are in the middle of those negotiations, and we always will remind people of that reality. Please, your decision will affect those people. Thank you very much.
Merci. Maintenant, nous avons la dernière intervention de Elk sur la question des réseaux d'acteurs dans le domaine du climat en Afrique. Je demande aux organisateurs, est-ce qu'on peut avoir 10 minutes supplémentaires, parce que logiquement, c'est le mieux. D'accord, merci.
You will need